Hi everybody, this is Maureen Wong from mycasestudies.blogspot.com. Today we're going to make this adorable I Dig You card using stamps from Paper Smooches and the MISTI. So let's get started. Okay, so today we're going to be using this set called 9 Lives from Paper Smooches, and these are all cats, but this one actually looks just like my dog Brownie. So I'm going to be using this image and calling it a dog. And I've already taken out my dog, and there's a matching die, and you can see that this is one of the older ones from Paper Smooches, so it is solid. So you have a couple of options. You can cut it out and then just sort of try and position your stamp over it and stamp it, and you can actually do a pretty good job with that, just eyeballing, but I'm wanting it a little bit more perfect than that, so I'm going to be using Ileana, who is the creator of the MISTI, her method for lining up die cuts, and I'm incorporating my sticky mat to hold my negative piece in place. Ileana just uses the magnets in her version, and you can do that, that's fine, but I'm really paranoid that my stuff will move around, accidentally hit a magnet or something like that. So I really like using my sticky mat for stuff like this so that it will stay in place, and even if I do whack something and the mat goes out of place, I know that I can just shove it back in that corner and it'll be perfectly aligned again. So what I'm gonna do is I've already cut out the image and then kept the negative space for my template, and I labeled it with the word front because I'm gonna be keeping this with the die and I will use it every time I stamp with that particular image. So I labeled it front so I always know this is the side that goes up. And then what I have here is just a piece of scrap printer paper, and I'm going to take my little image and do a rough cut around her, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I didn't even have to do that part if I didn't want to. And I'm just going to hold her on that piece of scrap paper, lay my piece of scrap down, and then I'm going to pick it up at the cover of the MISTI. Let me put this away. Okay. Now I'm going to be stamping, I'm going to be stamping him in Memento ink, and it's not because I'm going to be doing Copics. I'm actually going to be coloring with colored pencils, but one thing that I do like about the Memento is it dries really fast, whereas my favorite ink, the VersaFine Onyx Black, actually takes kind of a bit to dry, or I guess you can emboss over it, but I don't want to be chipping away embossing while I'm coloring. So what I'm going to do is just use a light stamping of the Memento ink for the scratch paper version for the positioning and actually on my die cut. And when I'm done coloring, I'll put the die cut back in position and over stamp it with my VersaFine to get a really nice clean black line, which is what I prefer. So right now I'm just gonna do a quick inking with my Memento ink and stamp her on the scratch paper. Now I'm gonna take that negative and position that around her, and I'm gonna position it as perfectly with the most even margins that I possibly can so I can get the best possible stamping with my MISTI of my image. And I'm gonna go ahead and first I have to put in my die cut. So I put down the negative and I just press whatever will stick to my sticky mat, and there's going to be that little bit on the edge where it overlaps the scratch paper and it's not going to stick, but all this extra edge is going to stick. So I would recommend when you make your templates, make them, you know, a good size larger than your image so that you have room for it to stick down. Now I'm going to take my die cut and place that right in place, and it fits in just like a puzzle piece. And now I'm going to go ahead and ink up my dog again and stamp it on my die cut. And there I get the perfect stamped image every time. So thank you very much to Ileana for this method. It really is a time saver, especially with these solid dyes. And now I will adjust my camera so we can do some coloring. Regarding the sticky mats, there was a little bit extra. If you took my sticky mat tip and you got your 12 by 12 Eclipse mat and you cut it down to 6 by 8.5, you'd have some leftover pieces, and they are really good for helping you with small die cuts. This one is actually not very small, but for really small die cuts, if you're coloring them in, say you had something like this leaf, although that's not stamped yet, it might be kind of a hassle to keep it from sliding around while you're coloring it. So what you can do is get that little bit of extra sticky mat. I should have mentioned this before, hopefully you didn't throw it away, but you can use that extra bit of sticky mat to hold your die cut in place, and you can hold on to the mat and turn it and move it. The only bad thing is your hand can get stuck to the side of the mat while you're cutting, but one thing you can do is just stick a post-it there, and then your hand won't stick. But if you do turn it, then your hand's gonna stick on this side. But like I said before in the other video, the Eclipse mat is not really sticky, so even if your hand does stick to it, it just comes right off it, and it doesn't leave any residue on your hand or anything. So I really like the Eclipse mat. But anyway, I'm using my Spectrum Noir colored pencils today, and this is number 87, and I'm gonna color my dog, almost my entire dog here, with this as my base coat. It was pretty funny getting my color chart and trying to match colors to my actual dog, and she had kind of a light brown undercoat with a little bit of white, and I'm using really light pressure here because I don't want a dark heavy layer, I just want a light layer. And so my brownie has this kind of light under layer, and then she has some white on her as well. She's mostly a darkish reddish brown, but then she does have some white spots, like her paws. Her front paws are white. And she has white on her stomach. I'm just going to put a little bit of color in here. And then she does have white on the tip of her tail, so I'm just going to color most of the tail, but not all of the tail. So this is just my base coat. And one of the great things about the method I'm showing you today is that you can color right over your black lines, and even if it obscures them, because colored pencils do go over black lines, so even if you do that and it does kind of obscure the lines, we're going to be over stamping it anyway, so don't worry about coloring over lines, because we're going to over stamp it and we're going to bring back all that definition from the stamp itself later on. So there we go, just a really light but solid coat, a solid base coat. And then I'm gonna come in with number 100. This is my dark brown, and let's see, I'm just gonna flick in some fur on the ears, above the face. And of course, I'm no colored pencil expert or coloring dogs expert, so you know, this is just my own thing. I am taking classes on coloring, but this is still just me because the class just started for colored pencils, and even though I signed up for the animal class, I actually haven't done any lessons yet. So here is my version of a furry dog. Now because that's a little bit too brown, I'm going to come in with number 90 and redden that up a bit because she's kind of a reddish brown, so this will bring that reddish tint into her coat. And there we go. Oh wait, sorry, I forgot. 28 for the tongue. And then I'm just gonna come in with 120 for that open part of the mouth. Okay, and there is my finished dog. Oops, sorry, I went out of camera, went out of the shot a little bit. I took off my post-it note, and you can see my die cut, and you can see how easily this peels right off. Okay, so let me reset my camera, and we can finish my card. Okay, so I've gotten my MISTI back out, and the first thing I want to do is make sure that my sticky mat is firmly aligned in that corner so that I know my stamp is going to stamp in exactly the same place. I'm going to take my colored image and pop it right back into that negative space, just like a puzzle piece. And then this time I'm going to come in with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is my favorite black ink for most stamping, because it is so sharp and a really nice black. And I am just going to stamp over my dog, and you can see what a really nice line that has. So now I'm going to let that dry because, like I said, VersaFine does take a bit to dry, and then I will come back and we will finish our card. Okay, to start finishing off the card, the first thing I've done is I cut a little grass hill, I guess, with a Yornik stamp die from the Spring Summer Scene die set. And then I've also cut from Eclipse masking tape a heart. This is from Little B, and I have both the positive and the negative. And what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my hill where I want it, and then I'm lining up my heart positive where I think I want it to go, and then my dog, and that looks good, so I'm going to take everything away except for my heart, and then I'm going to position the negative around that. And my masking tape is really old, so it doesn't stick well, but I use it anyway because it works well enough most of the time. Let me just double check. Yeah, that looks good. So what I do is I'm going to take my tumbled glass distress ink and my mini foam blending tool, and make sure you always push off the paper. You don't want to push into the paper because then you will lift up the paper and get ink where you don't want it to go. So I always sponge off the paper. And in case you're wondering, this is a Ranger craft mat underneath my project. It's on my craft table, and I have it stuck to an electronic die cutting mat. I actually used an old Cricut one. It was a 12 by 24. I think the Ranger sheet is 15 by 18 or something like that. And so I stuck the mat the craft mat down to my Cricut cutting mat, and then I just cut off the excess cutting mat and the excess craft mat, and now I have this handy mat underneath my work surface, and I can use it to blend on, do all kinds of messy craft projects, and then it just cleans up with a baby wipe after I'm done. Okay, I'm not going for a super dark, this is technically the sky, a super dark sky. So let me just lift that up a little bit and see how, oh, that's a little bit too light on some of the edges. So let me go back in here. Okay, now let's see how that looks. That's much better. Okay, so I like this. I just wanted a really light sky, just like that. Yes, you can see that. And now what I'm gonna do is adhere down my grassy hill. With my ATG gun. There we go. And now I can plan where I want my sentiment. And for my sentiment, I'm going to use my MISTI, so I have to get that out. I'll be right back. Before I go on, I just wanted to say that Bridget over in the Mystified group recommended these non-slip vinyl template sheets. They're a really nice thin vinyl, but they're pretty sturdy, and they come marked with a grid, a 1/4 inch grid on them, but they have outside edges too, so you have to cut those off. But basically what we're using these for is, remember how I had my acetate template that I printed off from Ileana's site? Well, it's a little bit flimsy, and some people didn't like it. So instead of using that, we get this template sheet and cut it down to fit the MISTI, which is 6.5 by 8.5 tall. And this way you can use it to line up things straight, to line up your sentiments straight, to line up anything straight that you want straight. And then the other thing I did with it was I actually cut one down to the size of an A2 card, so that it's kind of like the Ileana's template, and I drew the centers both ways, so that if I want to, I know that I can center something there, or if I want my sentiment kind of centered on the card, I know where the center is for both orientations. So I have just the all-purpose full-size one, and then I have this little A2 card one with the centering lines. So to stamp my sentiment, I'm going to put down my grid. And thank you so much, Bridget, for recommending these. And if you're looking for them, you can find them on Amazon. And I'm using this Paper Smooches set called Woofers and Tweeters, and I'm going to use the sentiment, I Dig You. And now let me just line this up where I want it. And I'm going to put it a little bit over that heart and next to the dog, and that looks really nice and straight. So let me close my MISTI cover and pick it up. And then I'm going to use, of course, my favorite black ink for sentiments, my VersaFine. And I'm going to stamp that down. And then my final step is to get some foam tape. This is the big giant roll from Amazon. And I'm going to put some of this on the back of my dog. There we go. And then just take off those liners, and I'm gonna, whoops, position my dog partly on the hill. That looks good. And press them down, and my card is done. So here's my I Dig You Paper Smooches Dog That Used to Be a Cat card. And it's a little unconventional Valentine's Day card, but it could be for any time as well. So I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. And I hope to see you over at my blog at mycasestudies.blogspot.com. Thanks very much for watching.